Welcome to Everything Life Coaching with John Kim and Noelle Cordeaux, founders of JRNI Coaching. If you're inspired to begin your own life coaching practice or just want to learn a little bit more about what it's all about, visit jrni.co. That's JRNI.co.
Hey guys, on today's episode, Noelle and I are going to break down effective communication. Noelle, good morning.
Good morning.
This is one of those soil topics again. This is foundational stuff.
It is. And, yesterday we recorded a gathering and talked about the difference between therapy and coaching. And we got so much nice feedback that I wanted to share with you. People wrote in and said that you and I communicate so effectively, and that they've
Oh, wow.
seen conversations like that disintegrate into defensiveness. And thank you for modeling how to do it in an effective, smart way.
That's a really amazing compliment. I feel like I talk over you and interrupt you and all the time. But
We
that's
talk over and interrupt each other,
yeah.
totally. But I think over the years, we've gotten really good at communicating with each other.
Yeah, and maybe talking over each other, as long as you don't do it too much, is okay. And we'll go through it, like maybe that's not the make or break when it comes to effective communication.
I think that's more personality than
Right,
anything, that we just,
right.
when we get together, we have a lot to say.
I file my interrupting people under passion. I'm just passionate.
Yes. Yes. Me
Right,
too. Me
exactly.
too. Well, so let's get into it from a coaching perspective. And guys, if you're listening, just a caveat: a lot of times when you listen to John and I, we make it seem so easy. We have
hmm
been coaching for a decade. We have been friends for a decade. We have been business partners for a decade, and this has been hard won between us, and
Mm.
it's really work.
Yes, and I gotta say, and I'm sure both you and I have had different work environments, different business partners, all of that. And without effective communication, it just naturally disintegrates, and then people start holding resentment, and it just the house of cards comes crumbling down.
Yes, it does. It really does. And, in the same way that we can use coaching skills to enhance all of our relationships, it also goes in the opposite direction, where the foundation of coaching itself is the relationship that you hold with your client.
Right, right.
And so, this competency of communicating effectively is the glue between coach and client to hold that relationship. And it really is a relationship. It's not just a drop in the bucket or a point in time. When you're holding space with somebody to work on their life, you're present with them in relationship.
Yeah, and all the sessions, they tie together, and there's an evolution and a building of that relationship.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful,
yeah.
and it's something that I truly cherish, the capacity to have that be my lived experience and what I do
hmm
with my work life and my time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. The ICF, the International Coaching Federation, has broken communicating effectively down into three components.
hmm the first one is active listening.
hmm Yep. And we talk a lot about active listening. And, I think that the term active listening is probably the best definition itself, to think of posing the question to yourself, of maybe even in mantra form: how may I be active in my listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people think listening means to just be quiet and to be passive and just to hear. And so the word active and listening almost sounds like opposites.
It's true, but if we're really breaking down modern life and society, people have a hard time dropping down into even a pure listening passive format because we all have squirrel brain from, our phones to dopamine to news cycles to feelings that we're all churning with during this very weird time. To actually listen to somebody is really work.
Well, also, while that person's talking, many of us are thinking of our comeback or thinking of something that's going to be defensive or thinking of, how we can control or manipulate the conversation.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all about the self. That's
Yeah.
ego talking.
Right.
And
Right.
there's no space for that in the coaching conversation because, you're a conduit for somebody else's life when you're a coach. So,
Right.
squirreling or maneuvering the conversation sets up this dynamic where the client feels like they're getting steamrolled.
Right. Right. So active listening is the ability to focus completely on what the client is saying and is not saying, to understand the meaning of what is said in the context of the client's desires and to support the client's self-expression.
Yeah, and that's so important too, and it takes so much of the pressure off of the work of coaching to know, hey, my client is going to drive this bus. I just have to show up as co-pilot and really listen to the person in front of me. And there are a couple of different ways to do that. And so, part of what John said was really hearing the client, and that involves their concerns, their goals, their values, which is values and beliefs, super important, and beliefs really specifically about what is and is not possible. John, how do you listen for this kind of stuff in session?
I love this part where we're talking about listening to what the client is also not saying. And so, because, we're trained to just listen to words, what is the client not saying? And for me, that means what's happening underneath. For me, that means what's the subtext. And for me, that means, not just words, obviously, but body language and like you said, values, all of that stuff that isn't just on the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And, not being a direct communicator and saying what you really mean and saying how you really feel all the time is super rare. It's so rare that it makes
Hmm.
people uncomfortable, and I know this
Right,
firsthand because I'm one of those people. When you
right,
ask me how I am, I'll tell you how I am.
right,
And
right.
but that's not true of our clients, and so somebody might come to a call and you could say, How are you doing today?" And they could say, "I'm great," or they could say, "Fine."
That's just the way the world is. It's like we're so used to just saying that we're fine or whatever. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, and so we actually don't speak our truth.
Yeah, we don't speak our truth. And when we're in the coaching space, we want clients to speak their truth. And there's a secondary aspect of active listening where the value in really hearing your clients speak their truth is that you take it and then you mirror it right back to them.
Hmm. And I think the reason why this is difficult is sometimes we will place our values and the way that we see the world, and all of that onto the client instead of embracing the client's values. With two hands.
Yes, and if you're listening and saying, "Uh-oh, I do that." That's normal, that's natural, that's part of being a human. When you're
Hmm.
learning how to be a coach and really leaning into these professional competencies, this is where you learn how to shift into a different way of being in conversation with people. And
Yeah.
the mirroring part of things, think about the last conversation that you had with somebody. Can you remember what you said?
Um, The last conversation I had with someone, no, not really. I talk a lot
No.
every day. I don't remember, no.
Me too. I have
Yeah,
no idea what I said. I remember what the other person said, but I have no idea what I actually said. And so when we
sure.
mirror back for our clients, we're telling them what they said.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Bec because we don't have that opportunity in life. And then,
Yeah.
that dovetails, the second part of communicating effectively, which is powerful questioning.
Yes, the ability to ask questions that reveal the information needed for maximum benefit to the coaching relationship and the client.
Yes, and I have to shout out to Deanna, one of our instructors who teaches this for the JRNI Coaching Intensive. She is
Yeah.
a badass mofo, like straight
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
she is masterful in teaching this class and makes you think about questions in a completely new way. So, too, like let's spin this for real life. When was the last time you asked somebody a question in if specifically with the intention of getting the maximum information needed?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's hard, and I think that's why Deanna's so great at it is because it's a craft and she's practiced it so much, to actually take a pause and think about how to, position something, to ask a question that's going to be compelling. That's really hard to do. It doesn't come naturally.
It doesn't come naturally. It's a coaching skill. And
Right.
this is one of the reasons why, leaning into coach specific training on this stuff is so very helpful because there are ways to ask very specific questions for discovery,
Mhm.
insight,
Mhm.
commitment. I'll give you an example of one. So there's a type of question called a scaling question.
Mm.
Scaling. And it's really helpful when a client says, okay, I'm really going to do it this week. Like this is the week that I'm going to do the thing. And the scaling question is measures readiness. So on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me honestly, how ready do you feel to do
Mhm.
this action?
Mm.
And kind of forcing somebody to really consider how they feel inside is a completely different cut of just saying let's just bowl through with goal accomplishment, because if you're resistant internally, then there's more work that needs to be done before you're actually going to follow through and do the thing.
Yeah. Would you say that also, powerful questions always, are open-ended? Like, they're not, yes and no?
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is the case. So, um, and when yes or no questions are interesting, a lot of times with clients, yes or no questions have the potential to be leading.
Mhm.
So something to the effect of like, John, you really love doing a podcast with me, right?
No. No, yeah, yes,
Hey, that's a
yes,
leading question. That
right.
I imposed my assumption in that question. I gave John 2 choices. He could either say yes and make me happy, or no and disappoint me, and I didn't give him the space to talk about any nuance or what was going on for him. And so, yes or no questions lead us to black and white thinking and shut things down for clients.
Right, and also, the way that you ask that can be aligned with a little bit of control, like, technically, that is a question, but Noelle's right, it's a leading question in that, in a way, it's not even a question because she says, "Hey, you like doing a podcast with me, right?" And that emphasis
Mhm.
on that word "right" makes me kind of, like, say, yeah, yes, I do," it's like she's twisting my arm very subtly.
Uh-huh, and this happens in relationships all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the time, and
Right,
that's where
right,
people's voices get stifled, and they don't feel like they're heard, and they get backed into corners, and nobody communicates with what they actually want. It's a
right.
hilarious thing that I've been hearing going around. It's kind of become like a meme for the pandemic, is asking, your partner or other people in your household, "What do you want for dinner?" I don't know how or why, but that's become a really divisive question right now.
Mm. Yeah, well, the restaurants are closed, and now it's about food, and everyone's ordering online. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of weight on that question. It can
Yeah,
be very
so, like,
loaded.
I've heard my
Yeah,
friends say, if I ask somebody what it can be loaded, "What do you want for dinner?"
yeah.
And they get angry, and it's like, "Oh, okay, we're here," right? So, this brings us to another point is when you ask clients, what they want, you can ask it in a way that actually moves them towards their desire. So let's stay with, what do you want for dinner? There, that could be anything. What do you want for dinner? And for some people, And I think maybe the reason why it's becoming just a weird question right now is like it could be anything. It could be scrambled eggs, it could be peanut butter and jelly, and that's too much pressure to have to decide. But, if you narrow it down and say, what haven't you had in a really long time that would delight your soul?
Wow, that's beautiful. I've never heard, "What do you want for dinner?" asked in that way.
Yeah, changes the question completely. And that's how we do it. I actually, ask my husband that regularly, and he just kinda rolls his eyes, but, he has the benefit of powerful questions all day long. Sometimes he hides.
He's taking it for granted.
No, I mean, sometimes, it
Yeah.
depends on the day. Yeah, and then, the other piece of this is your ability to communicate effectively, and this is at home and in coaching, and it's all about centering the person that you're talking to.
So would that be, was that under the 3rd pillar, which is direct communication?
Absolutely. And it's weird to think about centering somebody else when you yourself are trying to communicate directly, but that's what you have to do.
There's intention there, there's energy there, it's not just, passive, it starts with, making that decision, and I think it's rare, people don't do that, people don't center other people when they start, having conversations with them.
Oh, yeah, and then, there are really specific points that you can get to is, the coaching objectives, the meeting agenda, the purpose of what you're doing in session. If you're going to offer someone a technique or exercise, actually taking time to explain why you think that would be effective for your client and see what they think. Just don't assign it blindly and set up a power differential there. Say, "Hey, I think I have this really cool thing that we would both enjoy and you would benefit from. What do you think about it?"
Right, and the great thing about, learning this as a coach is you can't unlearn it, so as you learn this and you practice it, it's gonna benefit all your relationships, everyone around
Yes.
you. Yeah.
It will benefit all your relationships and everyone around you, and, a lot of this is really becoming aware of language and the way that you use it. So, one
Mhm.
of the things that I've really had to work on is making sure that I'm not using words and language in a way that the person in front of me wouldn't understand and might feel weird asking me what I mean. And that goes with jargon, like technical jargon. So a great example is metacognition, right?
Mhm.
Um, Metacognition is a psychology term that describes awareness around understanding your own thoughts and your
Right.
own thought processes. And this is a lot of what we work on in coaching is helping clients engage in metacognition. But
Mhm.
that's such a weird word, very few people would know it. And so if I roll into a session and I'm like, well, how's it been going with you establishing, awareness and metacognition? And somebody's like, what?
Right, right. Or they'll feel intimidated, or stupid because they don't know it, and then they won't ask what it is, and then there's, there's no communication there, there's, misrepresentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, and then flipping this over to how we do it at work or at home, I've really gotten into the habit of saying to people in my life who are not my clients, do you want me to coach you right now?
Mm,
Do you want information that I have? Like if I know something about the brain or the body or stress or how somebody's responding, I can't take it for granted that number one, that person in my life actually wants to hear from me. Number
right.
two, that they're in a place to receive that information. And number three, like that they're open to it.
Do they usually say yes?
No.
Well, because what they're hearing is, "Do you want me to send you an invoice?" Basically, no.
No, well, it really depends. So it's like if like most of my friends do want that information from me and they are very
Yeah.
appreciative of that expertise. But if I'm for example on the phone with my mom or my dad.
Mm,
And I might happen to have an extraordinarily deep body of knowledge around a particular point, and I say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, like this is actually what I do, like professionally in life. Do you
right.
want my opinion?" They're like, "Nope." No.
You actually just raised a really good point, and maybe it's under etiquette, but I love that you leave coaching or your work at work. And so when you're engaging with people on a social level, you either ask for permission or you don't wear that hat. And I think a lot of coaches, and especially even in the fitness world, they'll correct you, they'll tell you what you're doing wrong, they'll make comments about your diet, and you never asked for that. you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%, and I've kind of learned it the hard way. I mean, it's really been,
Yeah.
like, those moments where I'm in a bar and I'm popping off about, neurobiology, and I'm looking around and everybody's eyes are glazed over.
Right.
And
Right.
it wasn't welcome. Nobody
Yeah.
wanted to talk about brains with me. So I feel like, as we're kind of rolling around with this, we keep hitting the same themes, and it's,
Mm,
center the person in front of you, ask for permission, think about the way that you're framing things. Are you actually asking a question, or are you yourself looking for validation? And then, when you're communicating with somebody, be aware of your language. Like, are you showing off? Are you looking for cookies, or are you
right.
really trying to communicate with the person in a way that they can understand you? And also understand themselves.
Yeah, and finally, know that this doesn't come naturally. This is a skill. This is learned, and so if you are not good at communicating effectively, then it's just time to learn. I mean, we should be learning this in high school, but we don't, and so there's no need to put pressure on yourself that you should be at a certain level because this is something that we are not taught.
Oh, yeah, and come see us at JRNI Coaching, and a big part of this in training adults is really having empathy and
Hmm.
compassion for people and saying, "This is a really safe environment to learn this stuff because guess what? We were never taught, and now's a great time to try."
All right, guys, check us out at Journey Coaching and be well.
Ready to cut through the BS of becoming a coach? Snag John and Noelle's 6-step guide to becoming a life coach at journey.co/everything. That's JRNI.co/everything. If what you've heard here today speaks to you and you want to learn a little bit more about becoming a coach, visit journey.co, JRNI.co. We've graduated nearly 1,000 coaches and offer vibrant community, strong lifetime support, and world-class coaching education. We're fully ICF accredited and look forward to watching how you use coaching to make a bigger impact in the world around you.